From the cold, unrepentant eyes of the criminals and the stern faces of the judges, to the sharp arguments of the lawyers and the irrefutable evidence, each moment is recorded, reflecting a necessary but dark part of the battle against crime. Here are the most dramatic moments in court of the gang leader and their heinous crimes. Abel Gallegos, 36 years old, a gang member, has been sentenced to life imprisonment plus an additional 163 years in Denver. His accomplices include Ruthlessness, also 36, and Alonzo Quintana, 28 years old. Gallegos is notorious for his ruthlessness and loyalty to his gang, existing in a world where violence is currency and power is everything. However, even among the toughest criminals, there are lines that cannot be crossed and rules that must not be broken. Simone Duran, a young woman with a promising future, inadvertently finds herself entangled in this dark world. Her only mistake was being in the wrong place at the wrong time, witnessing a crime that fatefully linked her destiny with Gallegos. Previously, Duran had identified Alonzo Quintana, one of the accomplices, as a suspect in a deliberate homicide case in Adams County in early 2018. This identification made Simone Duran a target for the gang, leading to a grave crime. To ensure her silence, Gallegos orchestrated a plot to permanently silence her. On November 5, 2018, Duran was lured, kidnapped, shot while pleading for her life, and then set on fire. Gallegos initially approached Duran through social media, later meeting her with Rosales at a house in Denver. The motive behind this murder was revenge. The city was shaken by the brutality of Duran's murder, a stark reminder of the criminality of the Gallegos gang. But even in the darkest moments, justice finds a way. The reign of terror of Gallegos came to an end in a courtroom, not with a loud bang, but with the quiet turning of a page in the rule of law. The moment everyone had been anticipating finally arrived when Judge Philip McNulty sentenced Abel Gallegos to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 163 years. This crime marked the 6th felony conviction for Gallegos, who had previously had 8 parole or probation orders revoked. His accomplices, Ruthlessness and Alonzo Quintana, were also sentenced to life imprisonment, with an additional 150, 160 years, respectively. Shockingly, none of the convicted showed any remorse at the sentencing. Judge McNulty expressed horror at the callousness and disregard for human life evident in the crime, remarking, "You can no longer live among us." George Geweld, Thomas, a gang leader, has been convicted. Thomas's criminal activities started very early in his life. He had a record of burglary at just 9 years old and committed murder at the age of 20. This early development of a criminal personality laid the foundation for his future as a gang leader. Thomas was the leader of the Bishop Lavis faction of the 28s gang, one of the most notorious gangs in South Africa. He ran this gang like a criminal enterprise, orchestrating a series of violent crimes, including murder and extortion. However, that's not the full extent of Thomas's criminal reach. Even while incarcerated, Thomas maintained control over his criminal operations. He was convicted of orchestrating 7 murders from behind bars between 2008 and 2010. During his time as a prisoner awaiting trial in 5 different facilities, he made over 1,300 phone calls per month to his subordinates, coordinating criminal activities from jail. In court, Thomas's defense painted a picture of him leading a modest lifestyle, selling fish for a living, and living in a Wendy house in his mother's backyard. This portrayal starkly contrasted with his role as a fearsome gang leader. The Wendy house where he resided was reportedly equipped with external cameras, indicating his continued involvement in criminal activities. The case garnered attention for its complexity, involving over 70 witnesses, 19 murder cases, and 27 attempted murder cases. It was one of the largest cases presented at the Western Cape High Court. The complexity arose not from the usual financial motives seen in fraud cases, but rather from a passion for power and violence. Judge Chantal Fortuin noted that Thomas and his associates showed no remorse for their actions, instead deliberately launching attacks to instill fear in the community. The court learned how Thomas turned prisons into his headquarters, systematically planning murders, including potential state witnesses, and terrorizing correctional facility officials. The trial was of extremely high risk, witnessing state prosecutors and witnesses being provided with bodyguards and requiring fingerprint scanning for entry into the public gallery. Thomas claimed he only attacked prison wardens in retaliation for being assaulted by them, but the judge considered his brutal nature when sentencing him to life imprisonment. The trial, involving him along with 16 others, concluded at the Western Cape High Court. Thomas received 7 life sentences, to be served concurrently, for the crimes he masterminded during this period. Sandra Avila Beltran, known as the Queen of the Pacific, is a significant figure in organized crime. Connected to the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico and the Norte del Valle cartel in Colombia. Born on October 16, 1960, in Baja California, Mexico, Avila Beltran comes from a family with a tradition in drug trafficking. Her upbringing was deeply intertwined with drug trading due to her family's connections with key figures in the drug world, including the founder of the Guadalajara cartel. Growing up in such an environment, Sandra was surrounded by immense wealth from a young age and was exposed to the dangerous realities of the drug lifestyle, witnessing her first shootout at the age of 13. Despite this upbringing, Sandra initially had no intention of joining her family's business. She chose to study communications at the Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara, aspiring to become a journalist. However, her life took a major turn when she was about 21 years old and got kidnapped by a jealous boyfriend, who was also linked to the gangs. This experience was significant as it exposed her to the immense power of the cartels in Mexico. Following this, Sandra dropped out of school and entered the drug trade, quickly rising to its upper echelons. Avila Beltran maintained relationships with several drug lords and married twice to former police commanders, who later turned into drug traffickers. Her ascent to power in the drug world was due to her relationship with Juan Diego Espinosa Ramirez, a key figure in the Norte del Valle cartel. She led a lavish lifestyle and managed to avoid leaving evidence for the authorities until a dramatic event in 2002 when her teenage son was kidnapped. This led to an investigation that culminated in her arrest in 2007 in Mexico City. She was charged and convicted of money laundering for drug trafficking operations. In 2013, Avila Beltran pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges and was sentenced to 70 months in federal prison. She was deported back to Mexico in 2013, where she faced additional charges of money laundering and received an additional 5-year prison sentence. She was imprisoned at the Federal Social Readaptation Center No. 4 in Tepic, Nayarit. She was released in 2015 and currently resides in Guadalajara. Since her arrest in 2007, Avila Beltran served a total of 7 years in prison, including 2 years in solitary confinement. The Carpio brothers, Anthony and Michael Stephen Carpio, both teenagers, were convicted in a homicide case in Reseda. Both were members of the Rockwood Street Gang, a Mexican-American street gang located in the Westlake area of central Los Angeles, California. Initially formed in the 1970s as a youth club for Latinos, the gang's activities evolved significantly over the decades. By the 1990s, the Rockwood Street Locos had become involved in violent confrontations, drug trafficking, and other criminal activities. On April 24, 2013, members of their gang approached Kevin Orellano, an 18-year-old non-gang member, while he was playing handball at Cleveland High School in Reseda. The encounter turned violent after they issued a gang challenge, leading to a fight. Anthony Carpio, then 16, stabbed Orellano during the scuffle. The Carpio brothers then crashed into a car driven by Pineda. Both brothers were convicted of second-degree murder, and the jury also found the gang allegations against both defendants true. The Carpio brothers sat emotionlessly in the Van Nuys courtroom as Judge Martin Herskovitz pronounced the sentence. Anthony was sentenced to 16 years to life in prison, while Michael, by then an adult and apparently unarmed during the attack, received a 15-year to life sentence. They will not be eligible for parole until at least 2028.